What is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you have experienced? I've mistaken a random girl for another girl I haven't seen in 4 years, and then the crazy happened. This happened a year ago. I was shopping at a mall and took a bus there because I had no car at the time. As I finished shopping, I went to the bus stop at 10 p.m. and had to wait around 20 minutes there for the bus to arrive. Despite it being close to the mall, this bus stop was a pretty neglected one. Not many people took it, so in general it was an empty scenery with just a few cars passing by, especially at night. So as I was waiting, I was looking around and saw a woman approaching the bus station from around the corner. She was like 50 meters away from me when I noticed her, and as I was looking at her, she really reminded me of a girl I knew in middle school that I haven't seen in more than 4 years. Let's call her Lucy. In my mind I went, holy shit, is that Lucy? I haven't seen her in ages, and as she came closer to me I realized, that's not Lucy. It's a random woman. Keep in mind, at this point there was absolutely no one else I saw at this location for the last 15 minutes, and I haven't seen or even thought about Lucy ever before this moment. I simply continued waiting, and after 2 minutes the actual real Lucy comes around the same corner and starts walking towards the bus station. I couldn't believe it. What are the possibilities of that happening? I haven't talked to her at that moment because I'm an awkward fuck, and the bus came immediately after she arrived. That moment still bothers me to this day. Regenerating bracelet. I went out for cocktails with a friend. We got glow stick bracelets with the cocktails. Mine was pink, hers was blue. We put them on our arms and later slept over at my place. In the morning, we were chilling in the living room, and as I'm a pretty neurotic person, I bit my bracelet, so the glow stick liquid poured out and it was ruined. I threw the chewed out, colorless bracelet in the trash. When I sat back on the couch, I had an untouched pink glow stick bracelet on my arm. Both of us saw it and we're still in shock. What could this be? Something weird is happening in our town and only my family seems to notice. I don't know if this counts as a glitch in the Matrix or what, but we have been having some strange and scary phenomena lately. The first thing we started noticing were small things like duplicates. We would see someone somewhere only for them to inexplicably end up somewhere else. For example, my mother and I saw and chatted with an old friend at the grocery store, and when we arrived home later we saw on Facebook that this person was out of the country on vacation and had been for a few days. They have no memory of speaking to us either. Another time my mother and brother were leaving a doctor's office when they saw a crazy old woman in smelly, tattered clothes enter the office and start speaking with the receptionist. While she was talking, my mother and brother got in the elevator and went down to the lobby from the 3rd floor. Upon exiting the elevator they saw that the same crazy woman was in the lobby waiting for the elevator to go up. Sometimes it would be an event aired live on Facebook that we had already seen days prior, or a child celebrating their birthday twice with the same exact party and photos. I've taken phone calls that were duplicates of calls I had already taken with the other person, swearing we hadn't spoken yet. The scariest thing though has been the deaths. There have been 4 deaths in our community of very well-known and influential people, and every one of them has died twice. We hear about their deaths and see all the RIP posts on Facebook. We see the community fundraisers put on to raise money for the funerals, and even see the cars at the church or funeral home, only for these same people to die a week or 2 later, and all the RIP posts and fundraisers happen again. Only our family seems to notice these things happening. My mother and siblings and my 2 kids. We don't know what's happening and it is starting to scare us. Does anybody have an idea of what's going on or how we should deal with it? We are scared. This might just be an extremely strange coincidence, but I found my own grave. This has to be the strangest thing to ever happen to me. I discovered it a few months ago and it's played on my mind because I have a lot of health problems too. Last year my dad passed away. We visit the graveyard quite often and go to various family members' graves. It's a Muslim graveyard, so they usually have the father's name and other details on the gravestones. Near my uncle's grave, the one just in front of it has my name on it. My name is spelt a little differently to the common spelling. It was exactly like mine on the gravestone, first and last names. It's got the same birth date as me. To add to the strangeness, my dad, who also has an uncommon spelling to his name, was from a small village in Kashmir. On the grave it has the name of the person's father, my dad's name with the uncommon spelling. On the gravestone is stated that the father is from a village. Guess where the person's father was from? Yep, the same village. It's really weirded me out. I know people from that village and contacted them to see if anyone heard of this person other than my dad. No one seems to have heard of him. 3 days after my brother died, he told me that he loved me, and the night my dad died he said goodbye to my grandma. I'm not sure if this counts as a glitch in the Matrix, but it's going on 6 years since this happened and I still think about it. When my brother passed away, my dad was losing his shit trying to figure out how to tell my grandma, my dad's mum. This type of news is hard enough to deliver and he was stressing hard about breaking her heart. I volunteered to go with him, in hopes of offering some sort of support for both of them. We didn't call ahead to avoid questions about why we were coming to visit her. She wasn't home when we got there, so my dad asked a neighbor if he had talked to her today. She's at the casino. Her neighbor replied. Typical Bubby, Grandma. Of course I got a kick out of this. My dad did not. Small backstory, Dad's an alcoholic, so he wanted to go to a nearby bar to wait until she got home. Not my favorite idea, but as an adult child of an alcoholic, I've grown to be quite the enabler. So I took him to the bar to drink some pain away. After a few drinks, maybe an hour, I decided we should go see if Grandma's home. Dad's being kind of a dick, as is tradition. So I get annoyed and I tell him I'm going to the car. When I leave the bar I make an immediate left, damn well knowing I parked my car to the right of the lot. My dad behind me says, "Where are you going?" I didn't even respond because I knew I was going the wrong way, but right in front of me was this car. It blew my mind. Was this a message from my brother? Why did I walk directly to it? I was walking towards it before I even saw it. I couldn't explain any of it, so I snapped a picture of the plate and walked across the lot to my car. 9 months later, my dad died. Really shitty year. The morning after he died, it came back to, who is going to tell Bubby? Grandma, so again, I volunteered. My grandma is a champ and I love her, so I went with my mom to deliver more bad fucking news. When we get there, we're making small talk. My grandma says, "I had the strangest dream last night. Tony, my dad, came in my room to say goodnight, but he was younger and holding a baby. He was just waving at me from the doorway. I lost it. My mom lost it. My mom said, he died last night. He must have come to say goodbye. Since then, I see a shit ton of license plates that remind me of my brother and my dad. I try to snap pics of everyone. Coincidence? Probably. Thanks for reading." Visited my BF's parents in a city where I had never been before. We sat around in the kitchen talking, and then his mother asked me to get her scissors. I got up, went to the guest room dresser, opened the second drawer and got them out. There was no way I could have known where they were. Unknown acquaintance. Hi. I read all the rules, and I think this story can fit here. If not, tell me and I remove it. Also, I'm Italian, so please be indulgent with my English. I'm 49 and I started to work in a toy store when I was 23. For years we hired helpers during the Christmas time. So several years ago, but it's still stuck in my mind. At the beginning of January, a boy came in the store to greet me. He was cheerful and so happy to see me that I went along with him. Tough, I hadn't the slightest idea of who he was. After he's gone, I went to my boss and tell her about this strange boy who was convinced we knew each other. She looked at me like I was crazy and told me I've worked with him in close contact for an entire month, because he was in my aisle, that at the time was in the mezzanine of the store. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't, and my colleagues confirmed it. They told me his name, and even some anecdotes about me and him working together, but nothing rang a bell. Until today I can't remember working with him, let alone who he could be. Two other things left me puzzled. That day he came only to see me. The other only saw him go by. And he never mentioned having worked with me. Our conversation was general small talking, which had made it easy for me to go along with him. He's still famous like the forgotten boy. I hope I made some sense here. Thank you. My favorite glitch things. Hi from Italy. I've read many posts on this subreddit and I've noticed that many events have the same pattern. I was discussing it with my chief. She's used to my eccentricity and she recently found herself in the middle of some paranormal episodes, and she made me remember an episode I forgot. I work in a big toy store. We don't sell merchandise or anything related to TV commercials. We have very few dolls and even less stuffed animals, and we have a niche reserved to children books. We always joke about the existence of a ghost in the shop because of the little strange things that keep happening. I was the one who took care of the books, and once I found the little stuffed mouse between the books and I went laughing to my chief saying that there was a real Topo di Biblioteca, literally, mouse of the library, which is the Italian equivalent of bookworm. She laughed and put it in the drawer where we keep the forgotten items of our customers, because that was an IKEA toy. Then I went in the back of the shop, strictly for employees, where I kept the other books, searching for a title, and I found another identical mouse. I thought of a joke, but the first one was still in the drawer. And the multiplying of mice went on for about 3 days, one in the shop, one in the back, all identicals, and in the end we had 6. My chief thought I was the prankster, because I like to joke. And I thought was her, and then 4 mice disappeared and we left with 1 for each, which still both of us have. In other occasion, with a different co-worker, in a quiet moment of the morning, while she was opening box of books, I began to tell her of the beautiful movie I saw by chance the night before on TV because I wanted to suggest her to rent the VHS. I know, I'm old frown. She straightened up from the box with eyes wide open and showed me 2 copies of An Enchanted April, which was the novel at the origin of the movie, sent by error and not registered in the bill of lading. And remember, we only keep books for children, we can't order anything different. They are just 2 small occurrences in the midst of others, like every time we remember our great boss, who was a father figure to many of us and unfortunately is dead, someone who look a lot like him enter in the shop. Every single time. And always a different person with similar features, long grey hair, glasses, same pace, same way of dressing. He was a shabby dresser for a rich man, and that was a characteristic of his we loved very much. Sorry if I bothered you, I realize these are little things but it's been nice to write them. I have many others but always this small. And the last thing is about time. I've read somewhere that time seems to flow different in this strange year, and I can say that in my house it's definitely running slower. In my free days, when I'm busy with my hobbies, time usually run. Now it's slow like a snail. I'm very happy, but also bewildered. The last Friday afternoon lasted at least 3 days. And it keeps slowing down. For example, I started this day 2 weeks ago. Okay, now I really stop. Thanks to anyone who took time to read this. And sorry if I made some gross mistake with grammar or else. Thank you. Yesterday the dog and I disappeared from my sister's life, and she's still scared to death. Hi, I'm from Italy and I've already contributed with 2 posts since strange things often happen to me. But this happened yesterday to my sister, and she's still freaked out. Due to the pandemic she's working at home, and every midday she goes to our parents to take the family dog out for a walk. So yesterday she went to take Jazz and there was no Jazz. He was nowhere to be found. Our dad was grocery shopping and our mum was in the kitchen. When she asked her if Jazz was with our father, our mother asked her who was Jazz. Long story short, there was no dog. Apparently after the death of our first dog we didn't take another. Thinking of a strange prank. Wick is not typical of our parents. They are not pranksters and they are in their 80s. She searched the house, and she couldn't find anything suggesting the presence of a dog. No dog food, no dog bed, no dog toys, which he has plenty and are always everywhere. Then our dad came home, and still no dog. When she interrogated him, he started to think that she was the one who was joking. At the same time, from the kitchen TV she heard the news reporter talking about the end of the pandemic and the surge of something she couldn't understand. This morning she said to me that the reporter didn't seem very preoccupied for the surge of whatever it was, because words she couldn't hear would take care of it. She was so agitated that she also warned me that maybe she didn't understand well. After that she returned home because she didn't want our parents to see her while she was freaking out, and she tried to call me, because while she is indifferent to these kind of events she knows I'm a believer and she wanted me to join her and try to understand what was happening. And then I was nowhere to be found, my cell phone wasn't active and she couldn't even reach the shop where I work. They simply didn't answer the phone, which is quite improbable, because except when it's close, for us to answer the phone is mandatory. She tried with some of my friends too with no success. After that she went to bed and cried until she fell asleep. This morning I found 16 calls from her, with today's date. I called her back worried that something had happened, and she was crying. She is still very agitated, and she took Jazz at her home because she wants him to spend the night with her. She also confessed me that yesterday she couldn't muster the courage to call our parents or relatives and ask about me because she was too scared they would tell her she was an only child. At the moment she doesn't want to talk about it anymore, and obviously I keep asking myself, what was that? My parents told me that yesterday they didn't see her at all. They tried to call her at midday for the dog but her phone was mute, and they concluded that maybe she was busy. They thought it was strange her phone was mute but they didn't investigate it. This is all. I keep wondering where Jazz and I were, and what the news was talking about. Maybe in another universe, if my sister was not hallucinating but she never had these kind of problems. The events are evolving faster, and better. I'm so curious but she's still too freaked out to talk about it again. Thank you for reading and for any opinions. Hope I didn't make some gross grammar mistake. Edit. I wanna thank you for the awards, the kind words and the comments. I really was not expecting such attention. Thank you very much. In these days I'm working so I could only scroll through the comments. A little update: my sister made a doctor's appointment for next week, because we talked about nightmares and vivid dreams and she had those but nothing like that. She thinks she's stressed and that she may have a mental breakdown. The evening we spent together she told me the rest of the story, which has no mystery in it. She got home totally panicked and she couldn't stop crying. She laid down to calm down and in the end she cried herself to sleep. She was awakened by the cold in the middle of the night. She felt confused, tired and with a big headache. Then she vaguely remembered calling me, and now my phone was ringing. She felt reassured by the ring and she kept to make it ring every time she woke up. Unfortunately I don't have a ringtone so I saw them only in the morning. Now she's very angry that Shiz is panicked, and after making me swear it wasn't a bad joke on my part she decided to see a doctor. She ruled out anything weird. To her the only mystery is that she has lost a day. That Sunday before going to get the dog she did some computer work, then she got dressed and went to my parents'. When she woke up the computer was on standby but with no work in it. She was completely dressed and the bed was made. The door was not locked. Maybe she was sleepwalking, but she never suffered from it. This is all. Thank you again for the attention. About the dog, Jazz was the name they give him at the shelter and we keep it. My mum saw my wedding picture on my phone as my lock screen. I'm 18 and never been married. My mom was sitting on the couch tonight and I was standing next to her to the right, with my phone on the armrest. I clicked open my phone to show her something and quickly typed in my passcode, with the phone still on the armrest. She very casually said, "That's your wedding picture," and pointed to the screen. I asked her what she meant and she said, "Your lock screen, that's your wedding picture." My lock screen picture is just a picture of some palm trees from my trip to California. My home screen is also just a different picture of trees. I flipped through all of my tabs and there were no photos open that could have even remotely resembled a wedding picture. When I showed her my lock screen again, the picture of the palm trees, she seemed a bit shocked and said it was weird. She just said I saw someone in a wedding dress, after I questioned her another 10 times about it, and eventually dropped it. When she initially said it, I felt like I saw it too. It was the weirdest thing. I feel like I saw it, but it instantly left my memory and I couldn't remember what the picture looked like. I believe her that she saw it. Could this be a glitch that showed me my future? Edit. Here's a picture of my lock screen. Edit 2. My mom is in her 40s and very mentally sharp. Never had any symptoms of dementia or anything of the sort. I fully feel that I saw the picture too, but the memory of its contents was instantly wiped. Another reason I disagree with the suggestion of my mom displaying signs of dementia. It was a very eerie feeling. I even remember telling my mom multiple times I saw it too. My memory of the entire interaction is very foggy though, very weird considering it happened less than 24 hours ago. My wife survived her strokes, then she hadn't, then she had again. Glitch. So 8 years ago, my wife had her first strokes and was hospitalized for over a week. I never left her side. Despite a huge setback caused by an incompetent nurse, she'd taken my wife's blood pressure while she was sleeping and it was normal. Severe high blood pressure caused by stress was the diagnosis, so she'd pushed for my wife to be released the next day, but when she woke up her BP shot back up. The nurse tried giving her several injections and pills to bring it back down so she could be released, and the stress of it all, possibly plus the meds, caused her largest stroke yet. One of her eyes looked like it was going to pop out of her head. She was incoherent, and it was terrifying. Her mom and I were both in the room. She was stabilized and released about 2 weeks later. At home I became her constant caretaker, which I am to this day. A month or so later, I went out to get groceries. I did this in my wife and my car, which was a black Honda Element. It's important to note that my mother-in-law also drove an Element, but it was orange. I loaded the groceries into the car, and drove home. My wife's mother came out to meet me. We lived with her mom after her dad passed away in 2010, in a panic, asking where I'd been. I was confused. I went out to get my wife and I food, Mum. Then the look she gave me was absolute pity and grief. She called back into the house, to my wife's adopted brother who was also living there. It happened again. Come help get him inside. Then she looked at me, hugged me, and said softly, crying a little, honey, your wife passed in the hospital a month ago. We were both there. You sold your car to pay for her funeral. That's why you'd borrowed mine. I stared at her, pulled away, and whirled to look at the car I had just been getting the groceries out of. It was her orange Element. There were no groceries in the back. Our black Element was nowhere to be seen. My brother-in-law came out and they tried to get me inside as the full weight of the reality hit me. My wife was dead. Not waiting for me in our room with our cat. She was dead, and I would never see her again. As the screen door closed behind us when they got me inside, I felt a jarring sensation. Suddenly I was back in the car, the black one, in the parking lot at the grocery store, having just pulled the driver's door closed with some force. That was the jarring sensation. I looked in the rear view, groceries. This was definitely our car. I pulled out my cell and called my wife. I woke her from a nap, and told her what I'd just experienced. She was freaked out but comforted me and reiterated that she was okay and I'd see her when I got home, which I did. TL, doctor. I once came back from shopping to find my stroke survivor wife had not in fact survived her strokes. I had not been driving the car I was driving, and apparently since she died I'd taken to spacing out, but then I was back in the right car, groceries in the back, and a live wife waiting at home.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.